All right, welcome everybody to the Odd Couple podcast. You have Mike and Jamar here.
What up, what up, what up?
All right. So for today's show, we're gonna go the conspiracy route. Well, conspiracy or paranormal, however you want to call it. But we're gonna talk a little bit about Bigfoot today, and we have a couple cases that are in the Clumpton area over here around the Antelope Valley, more towards the west side. So we're going to be talking about Lake Hughes area and Lake Elizabeth area. Um, Out here in the Antelope Valley, there's been a lot of reports of a lot of different things, but specifically, we want to get into the Sasquatch sightings because that is something that is pretty rare around these parts. You know, we live in the desert, and you just kind of want to explore that because you don't hear about Sasquatch out here. I mean, if we're in Ohio in the woods and stuff like that, people see stuff. And the surrounding areas, Tehachapi and stuff like that, you know, people obviously, the Sierras and stuff like that, they'll see stuff. But we want to kind of touch on the out here in this area that's close to us.
Right, and that's interesting you say that, man, because I didn't know about it were so close to us too, man. That's right here in our backyard, man. That's real interesting. Um, Bigfoot and school the people too, Mike, on isn't there different names, right? It's not called Bigfoot, correct? Right?
Well,
Come
yeah.
on, bro. Let the people know like you let me know, bro. Come on, man.
Well, yeah. So we'll get into that for sure because you know the Bigfoot name now. Like when you say Bigfoot, people laugh, and so there's a bunch of different names for it. Especially regional, according to whatever countries that that they have them. So you have the Yeti, um, you have Sasquatch, you have now it's a wood ape, but I'm not so sure that it's an actual ape. But I mean, maybe it is. I don't know, but
Well,
you know,
I want to say that, Mike, just so that way we're saying the right name for out here. So what will be the name that we're calling right here in Leona Valley, right? Or is that the area?
yeah. So back in that area, I mean, we can call it. I mean, we can call it a Bigfoot. I mean,
Bigfoot? Oh,
Bigfoot or
okay. I don't know.
Sasquatch. I mean, that's what everybody's gonna know it by. It's Bigfoot out here, you know.
Right.
But that would be, I guess, be our regional name of where
Okay.
we're at. So, but yeah. So getting into these reports now, Jamar mentioned that Leona Valley is kind of where this stuff is, and it's kind of in that area. It's actually Lake Hughes. So Lake Hughes is past. If you're going west on was it like Palmdale Road turns into Lake Elizabeth Road, and you're going west. You keep
Right.
going, you're going to run into San Francisco Canyon Road, and that's going to come up in this report. And then you're going to get to Lake Elizabeth, and then you're going to get to Lake Hughes. And there's a couple ways to get there, not just that way. There's another back entrance that you could
Okay.
take back in the hills, which then comes to make it like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And once we start really getting into like a migrational pattern of these things, but we'll get into that stuff in the show. So this show is just like to introduce that stuff and talk about that and maybe and then we'll go over an encounter that I think I might have had, but I'll let you decide what you think
Right
it was.
on.
But so let's get into it then. Let's get into it. So off the
All right.
BFRO, we were looking at certain cases and reports, and then you know we saw that from the Animal Planet, finding Bigfoot. So Matt Moneymaker is a big guy that he's like the main investigator, and I think he runs the BFRO, the Bigfoot Field Research Organization, where people come in and they put in their reports, and then their investigators come out and they try to go out and see um, if they're really telling the truth, if they believe them, if there's any evidence, any stuff like that. So they investigate,
Right.
and then they'll kind of put at the end of it, if you read the report at the end, they'll say, I believe it's a credible person. I believe them. They could have saw something. We don't know exactly what it is, but it could be something. Which
Incredible.
it's a credible witness. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So hearing those reports, you look up. I go on the BFRO and I go to California, and then I go Kern County, because Kern County is a surrounding county. So where we're at in the Antelope Valley around us, we're still considered Los Angeles County. But you have San Bernardino County, you have Ventura County, and you also have Kern County. Those are all the things that surround LA County. And, LA County is really big. But going up into the bigger mountains, where Tehachapi is, that's Kern County. So my thought was like, coming into some Sasquatch Bigfoot research, I'm gonna check out Kern County. So when I look at Kern County, yeah, there's tons, But then all of a sudden, they go from Tehachapi, and then they go further up to the Grapevine, back up that way, up to 5, and then they come down to a place called Gorman, which is right outside, Neenach and Quartz Hill. And then you start getting towards Quartz Hill, and then you start getting towards Lake Hughes, Lake Elizabeth area. So I just kind of was like trying to follow the trail. So then I went over to LA County, and then there's very few on LA County, but the ones that we did find, the majority of them actually that are on the BFRO come from our area.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so Lancaster, Pure Blossom, Palmdale, Lake Elizabeth, or not Lake Elizabeth, but Lake Hughes, and Green Valley Ranch, or not Green Valley Ranch, but Green Valley. And
is that the Green Valley River Road or Green?
I'm not sure, but I think San Francisco Road goes into that area.
Okay.
So back up behind there. So
right.
So we'll start off with so they categorize these things with Class B and Class A. So looking at a Class B sighting, is like they have tracks. They saw where they heard it. They didn't actually see it, but they have tracks. Yeah. They saw. They don't know if they saw something, but they heard it. Things like that. A Class A would be like they saw it face to face. They saw this thing. They could tell you what it looked like, what color it was, how big it was, everything of that encounter. So the Class B one, it took place in 1976, but this report came in May 5th of 2010. So there's that big gap. So kind of remembering what happened, could be tough for people when they're retelling the story. But my thing is like, if it happened in 1976, why are you saying it in 2010?
Right.
Why? What took so long?
Do you think it's just because everyone is coming out now, maybe? And it's just, they won't think that, hey, you're crazy. Back then, who was going to believe them back then, bro?
Oh, yeah. And then, back in 2010, it still wasn't like widely accepted. Sasquatch, Bigfoot, still a myth. It's like a bunch of people seen them.
Quick, real quick, bro, Mike. Let me tell the people real quick, bro. This boy Mike, man. For you guys that don't know, like Mike is he's gonna look into. He's real, man. He's gonna look into. They do the research. He's gonna find it. He's gonna call you out on it. He's gonna make you think. He's not just gonna read something and be like, oh yeah, that's real. He's gonna pick your brain on it, and he's gonna come with some real facts, man. Like Mike, he put me on this trail, man, and make me connect some dots and made me start thinking. So just for the people to know that if Mike coming from Mike, hey man, it's real deal. It'll make you think at least. So go ahead, brother. Just letting the people know, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And kind of how I approach it is that I want to approach it to where I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I'm not trying to convince you that it's real or that really happened. I just want to tell you what I found out, and what do you think about it? What's your opinion about it?
Right, exactly.
I'm not. It's not a matter of fact, because there is evidence out there, and if it's real evidence, it's it's amazing. But if all the evidence, if one of these things is real, is really a real video, then that means it exists. It's just like we talk about, in these upcoming shows, we'll talk about, UAPs, UFOs, unidentified flying objects, all that stuff. But if one of those things is real, then that means that it's real. And the government has already said that, there's things out there flying around that we didn't make and nobody else made them. So we don't actually know what they are. But that's for another show and that's for another time. But I'm just referencing how if one thing is real, if one evidence, one video turns out to be real, then it's real. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, bro.
So anyways, this class B one, getting back to that, this was in Lake Hughes area, and it was snowing out, and the guy went to the stable, and there was horses back there, and horses were going nuts. And he heard this big noise, and he goes over there, and he finds this huge footprints leading back into the woods. And he doesn't follow it because he knows, like, hey, that's that shouldn't be out here. That's really big. Those footprints are bigger than mine. Whatever it was had the horses spooked, and it was, it was large. So, I mean, I don't think I would go after it. Would you?
Nah, probably wouldn't, man.
Right.
I don't blame him, man.
Right.
So I can feel that. I can feel him on that.
Right. So that's one report that came up there. So there's about 2 or 3 reports that come and say, something was there. We saw footprints. We saw this. We saw that. But we actually didn't see a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot. But now that, having said that, we get into where they start talking about, in 1980, or how about, let me say this first, but so in LA Times, if you go to the BFRO, and there's an LA Times article snippet that that investigator, pulled out, and he said that there was a truck driver in Lake Hughes area. Well, he was like driving down Lake Elizabeth Road in 1978, and this guy's name is Donald Lyon, and he said he saw a Bigfoot cross in front of him, and he went back to the spot or whatever, and he made a plastered cast, and he has that, and then he put a Bigfoot crossing sticker on the back of his bumper because he saw it. But see, that was reported in the LA Times. So I mean, there's some, I don't know.
What year was this?
That was 1978. But I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's when it was recorded. So the guy that the BFRO investigator that did these reports and stuff like that, I don't really want to say his name because I haven't got contact with them. It seems like a really cool job to go out and investigate all this stuff, but he does a really good job. Excuse me, I'm breaking down what he sees, what they say, what it looked like, and if it was credible or not. So when he comes up with his report at the end, he'll break it down if he thinks that, well, they just saw the Legend of Boggy Creek and, they associated with something that they saw really wasn't that, and they were just scared or something like that.
Okay.
But he'll say stuff like that, and then he'll go, or he'll say like, "This is a credible witness." I called him up back over, but then they go into their background like this is a military guy. He was a cop for this many years, and then when he decided to retire, he finally said his story. Which, I mean, if something has so much ridicule on it, you're gonna wait until nothing could happen. Like, you can't lose your job, you can't lose your career, financially, you're not going to get destroyed over a legend, even though it's something it really happened to you,
Right.
but people won't
Right.
accept
Right.
it. But
But
what?
won't there you go. Won't accept it, man.
Why won't they accept it though? That's my question. Why
Scared?
won't they?
Yeah,
Yeah,
same. Hey, good
I agree.
question, man. Hey, rhetorical.
I
Right.
agree. Like you don't want to believe that this stuff's real.
Mm-hmm.
Why? I mean, we live in our bubbles. You know, there's things out there that could eat us and kill us, right? But we know that there's lions and stuff, tigers. People in India have to deal with that stuff. But I mean, you got a thing that's way bigger than us, stronger than us, look like us, walk like us, but can kill us in a snap of their finger.
Mm,
It's kind of weird, right?
mm. Yeah. Yeah.
But we know that it exists because there's gorillas out there. You know, there's big old gorillas that if they really wanted to, like we can't do nothing about it.
Hey, we can't do anything about that, man.
You know, so I mean,
So,
unless you got a gun.
yeah. Great point.
But
Good point, man.
but I agree. I think a lot of the ridicule comes from being scared, and you know, we can get into a whole nother conversation about control and
Right.
all that stuff. You know,
And like that, what was they? It was on the. It was a show that you had put me on, man. So many of them. It was. It might have been where they did the propaganda. Remember, the lady was telling us how the trick the media. The
oh
media
yeah,
comes out to trick
hmm
the people into thinking
hmm
that putting the truth out there in plain sight, right?
yeah, yeah. So
After
a lot of the ridicule started back in Roswell, right?
Roswell, that's what. Thank you.
Yeah.
See, I knew you
So
would know, bro. See, I thought.
well, yeah, because that's a big thing. And you got to
Yeah.
go back and see where did that stem from? Like where did it start it from?
Uh-huh.
You know, and then they're tracking back. You know, a lot of these reporters and investigators, and you know these people that are into the UFOs and stuff. You know, they track it back to it actually happened in Roswell because there's a lot of whistleblowers. There's a lot of people who had deathbed confessions at that time saying that what's the best way to throw people off the truth is to ridicule them if they talked about it. So
Hmm.
if you're gonna receive ridicule on something that happened to you, you know, and you see what happens to people that come out, the ridicule that they receive, and it ruins their entire life, you're not gonna say nothing. You're why?
Right.
What's the point? You know,
Yeah.
I'd rather not say anything and my life be fine instead of saying something and then get thrown away as not being uh you know a truthful person or being validated of my experience. People don't want that. People don't want to go through that. You know, so once that becomes a pattern and people see that, it's not going to happen. And people aren't just they're not going to come out and offer their things. But when you're older and all that stuff's done, you're going to offer up like this is what I saw. Check this out. Like you know, because get what if I ridicule you, what are you going to do? You're just going to laugh. Like okay,
Right.
I don't mean nothing. Like you can't do nothing to me. It does you know you can't take my job away from me. But you know what I mean. So
No, you're right. Hey,
that's
you're
my
right.
that's my little ramble. But getting back
Go ahead.
to the Class A encounter that happened up in Green Valley, which there's some of our coworkers actually live up there, so we need to
Wow.
hunt those people down and see if they ever seen anything. And I'm sure if they did, I don't know how they're gonna feel about talking about it, but
Hey, hopefully when they retire, like you just
yeah.
said, they're
So
set.
in so in 1980, there was an encounter up there, and you saw the report. I read the report. I've gone over it a couple times, and pretty much just to get down to it, there was two guys that were getting ready to go to the military, and they decided to go on a vacation, or no, let's have like a little camping trip, right, between two bros, right? So take the guns, go camping. If we see a deer, we, you know, do whatever we got to do. And you know they're young, so they're hiking through the area. So one night that they're in camp, they're in their tents, and they hear all this commotion going around the tents. You know, word breaking, you know, stomping around. So they get out of their tent with their guns, and they don't see anything. They can hear something, but they don't see anything. So they get really scared, and over in that direction, they decided to fire a few shots, right? So they shoot in that area, boom, boom, boom. Don't hear anything
Well,
for a
shit,
minute. Yeah.
that's what I don't get, man. Why they shot in that area though, like that?
Well, so their thought was to scare off bear. They thought it was a bear.
Okay, okay.
So if you usually any animal, they're gonna hear gunshots because it echoes. You know, like especially in the canyons out there, that thing goes out sounds like a cannon going off, and it just boom and echoes through the whole thing. So their assumption is that these things are gonna run away,
Okay,
or
okay.
or it's a bear that's gonna run away. Whatever it is, their assumption is gonna run away, but it doesn't. Right? It still
Right.
walks around their camp, and they freak out. So they freak out, grab their stuff, they leave camp, and they get back down San Francisco Road, and they're in the ditch. And I don't know why they're in the ditch. I don't even know. Think they know why they're in this ditch, but they had their back to it and with their gun, so they're ready to fight because they're so scared they don't know what's going on. Because that thing started walking around after they fired the shots, like it wasn't even nothing. Like you don't scare me with your puny little guns. But I think it was an M1 or something like that, if memory serves me correctly.
Mm,
And
mm.
so they were even saying that they were so scared that when they were by the highway, if they saw like a light from a truck or a car, that's what gave them comfort because they were so scared. They didn't know what the heck was going on.
Mm.
So
Wow.
then they get back to their camp the next day. The sun comes up. They get there. Nothing's disturbed. Everything is as if they left it. This night they decide that they're not going to sleep in their tent because they need to sleep outside so they could see what's coming this time.
Mm.
So they have their stuff out. They're getting ready to go to bed, and I guess they go on one last walk right before sun goes down. So they go on this one last walk, and on the dirt road that they're walking down, there he is. He's standing there, and it's looking at him. Right, Sasquatch.
What?
Yeah, it's looking at him, and they, if me and you were side by side, they stand still, and they start talking to each other, staring at it like, like, are we seeing this? Like, is that real? Are we really
Like,
seeing
oh
this?
shit! Like, what the hell?
Yeah, like, is that real? like you see what I see? Yeah. Like, what do we do? Do we shoot it? So
Right.
they're frozen. They could talk, but they can't move anymore. They're like, okay, we got to get out of here, but how? So they start walking back slowly, right? And this thing's still standing there staring at him. I mean, I don't even think it
Wow.
was that far away. I think it was like right there. It was, probably maybe a good distance away from him, but it wasn't like it was like
Yeah.
if the thing wanted to come at him and get him, it could have. It was
Oh
right
wow.
there. And
Like that.
so they start walking back slowly, like, okay, do we shoot him? Like they're like they didn't know what to do, so they're all of a sudden they said that thing just looks at them and turns slowly and just walks away. And it was making that sound that they heard at their camp with breaking the trees, walking and hitting the ground and thumping.
Well,
So
that must have been loud.
yeah, well, I mean, they said it was either 8 or 9 feet tall and probably weighing 450 pounds, but
What?
it should have been it probably weighed more than that. I would assume it weighed more than that because once you get other reports of things that are like 8 or 9 feet tall, 10 feet tall Sasquatch, they're like 600 to 800 pounds.
Eight
You
or
know?
9 feet tall, bro.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Think about that. Think
Well,
about that.
shit. I think.
Eight or
Well,
nine
I
feet tall.
think. Yeah. Well, I'm about to say that kind of
Well,
goes
how tall
into
are you, Jamar? How tall are you?
6'4".
You're 6'4". Homeboy had another 2 feet on you.
Easy.
You know what I mean? And Shaq's looking up at this thing too. Like, what?
Come on now.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I seen a guy that was one time that was, I think he was 7.5 feet tall. I don't know if he was actually 8 feet tall, but he was like 7.5, seven something. And I was just like, oh my God, that man is tall. You know, I couldn't get over how tall he was.
Right. Hey, it's
But
crazy, ain't it?
yeah, it's absolutely nuts. So, what do you do with that? And then, I get those guys waiting, or that guy waiting so long to tell a story about him and his friend, because look at the career he had. He was an officer for so many years, and only after he retired is when he came out and said it. And shoot, I don't blame him, because in 1980, you didn't hear nothing about a Sasquatch. They didn't have the shows that we have now. They don't know.
Right.
They didn't know what they were looking at. And if somebody said something, well, they had the Patterson-Gimlin film. Patterson-Gimlin film they had, but there was so much ridicule behind that, and like so much faking behind that, and even to see it, I guess maybe at that time was kind of tough unless a program did it. But
I have no clue on nothing what you're talking about now, brother.
Well, so the Patterson-Gimlin film, these two guys went out and they filmed the first Sasquatch. It's called Patty, the Sasquatch's name, and that's the famous picture where the Sasquatch is looking back at you.
See, man, that's why. This is who now? What's her name?
Her name is Patty. All right, so we'll get into another show about Patty in the Patterson-Gimlin film. But I don't know if you ever remember me showing you a female. Remember a female Sasquatch? Remember I brought it up. I was like, look, bro, it's got boobs, it's got tits. And they're like, wait, why does it have tits? But that was back like in the 60s, I believe.
Okay.
I don't know the actual date, but that was back in the 60s, and it's like, okay, first of all, why would they fake that? Why would they make it a female?
Mm-hmm.
And how would they have the technology to do the muscles and the, all that stuff? Like, why?
Right.
What's the purpose? And even the guy from the 30s, he was playing the apes and stuff in the ape costume, said that that would take over 10 hours of makeup and at least just to do that, and you'd have to do it there and then do it. He's like, who would do that? Like, why?
Mm-hmm. Crazy, man. Crazy.
So,
all right.
Yeah. So that's one of the cases out there. Now, me and my daughter wanted to go fishing out there, and there's no water out there in the lakes. So Lake Elizabeth and Lake Hughes, there's no water. Like,
okay.
So we're like, and there hasn't been apparently for a while, and I kind of knew that, but I was like, let's go fishing, let's go check it out, and we can do some Sasquatching.
Right.
And kids, they roll their eyes like whatever. But I bought a monocle. A monocular. So like the single binocular thing, and it's cheap, bro. Like I got it from Walmart. It sucks. I know it does. It's battery powered, but you can zoom in and you can kind of see stuff.
Right.
So we go out there, and for some reason in between Lake Elizabeth and Lake Hughes, I kind of stopped the truck because there's a real cool like a ridge top of the mountain, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a couple out there. So I'm looking up one, and it's full of woods, and I'm like, man, if I was a Sasquatch, I'd be in that.
No way.
And then there was one to the right, looking kind of like at the angle we were looking at, and it had like bald spots on it, so it kind of looked like some of the mountains out here where we're at, back over on this side, where there's like just single trees standing up, and there's like gaps in between them, so you can kind of see through the trees, and you can kind of see grass in between them. So we're looking up there, and I'm just like curious. I'm like, well, I mean, if we were really going to see anything, we could see it up there. If it, happened to just walk across, and we're just bullshitting, just looking, and kind of looking at, oh, look at that bird right there. Oh, look at that. And I was like, and she's all, I'm looking up at that ridge, and she's like, what are you looking at? I'm like, that ridge up there. Look, it looks cool up there. You can see it. She's like, okay, cool. Let me see. I want to see. So she has the binocular. She's looking, and she goes, Dad, something's walking in between the two trees up there. Like,
no way.
What? Like, I look up there. I'm like, and I could see like a faint black thing, but it was like tall. I know it was tall because it was like from how far away you were, it looked like a skinny little like black pen, walking. It was moving across, but it started from one tree to the other, and it's a pretty good gap. You know, it's not small, so you could tell that something's walking across. And I'm just like, I'm just cussing like, nah, hell no, nah, there's not some, that's not real. And I'm just cussing like, what the, like, and you know, my daughter's in there, so I kind of like calm down, and she's like, yeah, she's like, the thing is really big, like it's black walking across, and you can see it, you can see that black thing going across, and I'm just like, nah, no way.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
man.
it had a,
Man.
you know,
Man.
I'm like, it has to be a person, but then there's like foothills in between it, and everybody's like, why didn't you go up there and see? I'm like literally, you can't. I mean, you could. It would take you like maybe like me. It would have taken me like 2 days to get up there because you know
Wow.
I ain't in shape and I ain't a hiker like that. But you're gonna have to hit a canyon, some foothills, and then back up to the top. And the top is up there.
That's crazy.
It's not there. So I'm thinking like, okay, maybe there's maybe that's the back way, like San Francisco is back there or something, and it's just somebody up there, or that's somebody's property, and they get up there behind that. So,
Crazy.
so I don't know. I don't know. It's just what we
That's
saw,
crazy, man.
and it just happened to be at that time in that area. But the reason why we were there is because I found these reports on the BFRO, and I wanted to see if what they call it was squatchy, and it is. Like there's areas up there that are crazy. And if you keep going past Lake Hughes and you keep going past the town and stuff like that, and you keep going, it gets like woody back there, man. It gets like thick, you
Mm.
know. And then I think you run into like Lake Castaic and Piru and all that stuff if you just keep going.
Oh yeah.
But in
Okay.
between there,
Yeah,
it's like,
that's crazy, man.
yeah. And I was like, man, this is super squatchy out here for sure.
So like super squashy, huh?
Yeah.
So hey, but you were telling me though, like the thing was like half of the trees, right? Like swinging back and forth, right? Like going from one tree to the next, right?
Well, yeah, no. So it's walking. It looked like if it was a person, it looked
Mm.
like it was walking or it was moving across like steadily, not bobbing up and
Crazy,
down,
man.
just steadily moving across, you know. And and it looked to be half the size of the trees, or maybe a little bit shorter than half, but you could tell it was big. Like it stood out when it got in that gap where you can see from the one tree to the other. You know, like literally holding my hands up from shoulder to shoulder. So when I'm
Mm.
looking up at that canyon, that was the gap in between. Like when you're looking, you know, you're getting a reference. Like you know, that's how you're seeing. That's how far away we were, though. But you could tell that it was tall because you have the tree for reference, and then you have this thing that's like, you know, you got the top of the tree, and then it looks like it could be halfway or a little bit shorter than halfway, and it just steadily moves across from one tree to the next. So then she's looking up there, and she's like, "Yeah, Dad, it looks like a stump is leaning against that stump. It looks like a black stump against a brown stump." And I was just like, "Uh, okay, cool. That's probably what it is." She's like,
So
yeah. She's like, but I don't know. I saw that thing walk across. I was like, well, I mean, you could have saw a Sasquatch. She's like, yeah, maybe. You know, and she's funny, man, because she's like always giving me crap about aliens and UFOs and Bigfoot stuff. But you know, she saw something, and you ask her, she's like, yeah, no, I saw something walk across. And she was the one that spotted it out. I didn't even see it. I didn't even see it until she said something. Because I was actually
that's
looking in
so
that area.
dope.
Yeah, I was actually looking at that area, and I was just kind of like, you know, perusing around with my eyes, just checking it out because it's nice out there. And then when she
That's
spotted it out,
dope.
I looked up there, dude, and I saw it like, oh, no way, no way, no way. So, but I mean, I'm glad I saw it. If it was, say it was, you know, in my
Uh,
in my mind, if it was, I don't
mhm.
want to be
Well, see,
any.
in your
I don't want to
mind
be
though,
any
but
closer than that.
but you can't. But bro, look, man, you knew you weren't going fishing.
No, I didn't go. I didn't go out there to go fishing,
So it's like something attracted you, right?
and it actually did. It actually did because we weren't going to go that day. We weren't going to go at all. Um, you know, because it was kind of started off cool, and then around a certain time, we're just like, You want to go? Like, yeah, let's go. Let's go get something to eat and just go for a drive. She's like, yeah, it's fine. I was like, all right. And usually I get to that point if it's like, do you want to do something? I'm like, hell no, I don't want. I'm good. We just sit here and watch movies
Yeah,
and
bro.
eat junk food. But just for some reason, it was like, all right, let's go. You know what I mean? Have
Dope,
you
man.
have
Dope.
you had any like weird experiences? Because I because
Yeah,
I know.
we're gonna have to get into that, man. We got to say that. We got to say that one before. I would say,
Yeah, but
yeah, yeah, I have.
didn't you live in like North Dakota or something? Where were you at?
I was into that, man. Phew. I was in North Dakota, yeah, one spot, Wyoming, North Dakota, in
Now
that area.
there's woods and stuff out in that area, right? Wyoming.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. What? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
did you see anything out there? Was there
I,
anything out there that you saw?
nah, I didn't. I didn't see too much out there, man. Nothing like that. I wasn't on this journey then.
And even if you saw it, you probably wouldn't would have paid
I
attention to
wouldn't
it.
even. Yeah, exactly, man. And hey, but I bet you I probably was right there by it out there in the oil fields and stuff, man. Because out there in the middle of nowhere,
Possible, bro. It's possible. I mean, they see them everywhere. It's not like it's just only in the woods. I
one
mean,
spot.
like they've been reported in Texas. And
Oh shit.
some of these podcasts that talk about Sasquatch, the first Sasquatch was found or body was examined in Texas, and we'll get into that show later because that's
Oh wow.
that's that's getting out there on certain things. But there's in Texas, especially Northern California, up and down
Mm.
California. Actually, they've been spotted. I mean, San Bernardino County, all the way up. You know,
But hey, didn't you tell me earlier, man, this school during football season, man, you were telling me about the Mojave Sandman, the
oh yeah.
Mojave,
So the Sandman is in
right?
Mojave, yes, but which we live, our desert's the Mojave Desert,
Or desert, right? Like in
and
Edwards, right?
yeah. So the couple of shows it was a UFO Witness, I think that we saw it on that show, um, where they came on and said that the Sandman has been reported at this certain base, and then the lead investigator on the show was like, oh yeah, there was a story from Edwards Air Force Base that the Sandman was actually on the base, captured on film, and got into the underground tunnels. And I was just like, what? Like a Sandman? But I mean, why not? Because they're just gonna come off the mountain, so
Right.
it's not like it's like a
Makes
different
sense.
different being. It's just coming off
Right.
the mountains that we have up there, and then that goes along with other reports that people in that we're going to get into in another show. But there's reports from the 70s out here, all along the Mojave Desert floor and the Antelope Valley. I mean, out there, and that you'd never expect that to be the case. So, well, we'll get into some of that too, also in a later show. But for this one being so right in our backyard, we work close to these mountains that are Lake Hughes, right on the other side of Lake Hughes, Quartz Hill area. So on the
Hmm.
Quartz Hill area, um, you know, we're going to get into more cases of that, but there's actually a report on the BFRO from Quartz Hill, like in Quartz Hill, like Quartz Hill,
Whoa.
the like
We'll
50th
have to get
and
into that,
50th
man.
and L10 Quartz Hill, like not like 220, which there is a lot out there, 200 West, all that
Mm.
stuff.
That's deep out there, huh?
And we even heard reports.
What's that? East,
We
west?
heard, yeah, the West. We heard
Ooh.
accounts from our players, right?
Sure did. And
Yeah,
that came out of nowhere. We
it
weren't
came.
searching for that shit.
That
That shit
wasn't.
just came out of like you called me over and I was like,
Yeah,
who was leaning what was leaning up beside your house?
yeah. Well, and then we'll get into that story too. But hopefully, we can get a few people on here to tell their stories, which is kind of
Some
like what we're aiming for. But for right now, we just kind of want to introduce these topics, and especially around the Antelope Valley, because there's so many legends out here. There's so many legends. There's so many sightings of things. Not just Sasquatch, but you know if you want to see some UFOs and some
UFOs.
strange, strange things flying in the air, I don't know why I couldn't say that.
Hmm.
Um, you'd live out here for sure. Like no doubt, you'd move out here
Hmm.
just to see if you could see something or to be around it. You know what I mean?
Yep. Well, man.
So
Yeah. Hey, man. I think. Yeah. That was a that was a good one right there, man.
yeah. So any last thoughts? Any closing thoughts on that? What do you think?
That was good. That was good right there. Now, yeah, like I said, we'll get into it. But I witnessed some things, man. But we'll get into that.
All right.
We'll save that
Save
for
that for another show.
when that come up. It'll come up. But nah, man, I think that was pretty what we're looking for right there. Hopefully, we'll get some feedback.
All right. Yeah. Well, you guys listening, subscribe and like this video for us. Really appreciate it. We're just trying to get this thing started off and kicked off and introduce cases or experiences that we've had and that we like to talk about. You know, like we said,
Yeah.
we're not trying to convince you anything. We just want to let you know what we know.
Always do your own research, man.
Yeah,
Don't
and
take anything. Always do your own research.
yeah, and how we see it and coming from our perspective. So, thanks for coming to the show. Really appreciate it. You guys have a good rest of the day, a good night, and thank you for listening.
Peace, 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 peace.